A man named Christopher Columbus arrived on his third voyage to the New World. He saw the coast of Venezuela. He saw the beautiful rivers flowing into the sea. He saw the green forests and the blue waters. But he did not stay long. He continued his journey. The real changes would come later. In 1528, Spanish explorers came back. They came to stay this time. They came looking for something special. They had heard stories about a city made of gold. They called this city El Dorado. The Spanish believed they would become very rich if they found it. They searched and searched. They never found El Dorado because it did not exist. But they found something else. They found a land rich in other ways. One explorer was named Alonso de Ojeda. When he arrived at Lake Maracaibo, he saw something interesting. Indigenous people had built their houses on stilts over the water. These houses reminded him of Venice, the beautiful Italian city. He decided to call this place Venezuela, which means Little Venice in Spanish. This is how the country got its name, a name that came from houses on the water. The Spanish started to build towns and cities. They brought their language, their religion, and their customs. They also brought something terrible. They forced the indigenous people to work for them. Many indigenous people died from new diseases brought by the Europeans. Many others lost their freedom and their land. It was a dark and difficult time. The Spanish took gold and other treasures back to Spain. Venezuela became a colony, controlled by a king across the ocean. For almost 300 years, Venezuela remained under Spanish control. The Spanish king ruled from far away. Spanish governors controlled the colony. They decided what people could do and could not do. Venezuelan people had to follow Spanish laws. They could not trade freely with other countries. All the wealth from the land went to Spain. Life was hard for most people. Only the Spanish-born colonists had power and comfort. But slowly, something was growing in the hearts of the people. It was a desire for freedom. The people born in Venezuela, called criollos, began to feel different from the Spanish. They loved their land. They wanted to control their own future. They were tired of sending their wealth across the ocean. They wanted independence. In the early 1800s, a great change began across South America. Many colonies started to fight for freedom. In Venezuela, one man became the symbol of this fight. His name was Simón Bolívar. He was born in Caracas in 1783. He came from a wealthy family, but he had a dream. His dream was to see South America free from Spanish rule. Bolívar is remembered as El Libertador, which means the liberator. His story is the story of Venezuela's birth as a nation. The fight for independence was long and bloody. It lasted many years. Bolívar led armies through mountains and across rivers. He won battles and lost battles. Many people died fighting for freedom. But the Venezuelan people did not give up. They believed in their cause. They believed in their right to be free. Did you know that Bolívar not only freed Venezuela, but also helped free other South American countries? His vision was big and brave. Finally, in 1821, Venezuela won its independence from Spain. The Spanish were defeated. The long colonial period was over. People celebrated in the streets. They were free at last. But freedom brought new challenges. The country was damaged from years of war. The economy was weak. Different groups had different ideas about how to govern. Venezuela's journey as an independent nation was just beginning, and it would not be easy. After independence, Venezuela faced difficult years. There were conflicts between different leaders. There were small wars and political problems. The country struggled to find stability. Leaders came and went. Some were good, some were bad. The people worked hard to build their new nation, but progress was slow. For many decades, Venezuela remained poor and divided. Then, in the early 1900s, something happened that changed everything. In 1914, workers discovered oil. At first, it seemed like a small discovery, but soon more oil was found. Lots and lots of oil. Venezuela had one of the largest oil reserves in the world. This black liquid gold would transform the country completely. By the 1920s and 30s, oil companies from other countries came to Venezuela. They wanted to drill for oil and sell it around the world. Money started flowing into Venezuela. The government received payments from the oil companies. With this money, they built roads, schools, and hospitals. Cities grew bigger and more modern. Caracas, the capital city, became a beautiful modern city with tall buildings. People's lives improved. Jobs were created. Venezuela became one of the richest countries in Latin America. Can you imagine how the country changed? Before oil, most people were farmers living simple lives. After oil, Venezuela became modern and wealthy. The 1950s and 60s were good years. The economy was strong. People had hope. Venezuela seemed like a success story. They called it the Saudi Arabia of South America because it had so much oil, just like Saudi Arabia. The future looked bright and full of promise. But there was a problem hiding beneath the success. Venezuela became too dependent on oil. The country sold oil and bought almost everything else from other countries. Farmers stopped growing as much food because it was easier to buy food from abroad. Factories closed because imported products were cheaper. Venezuela put all its eggs in one basket, and that basket was oil. This would cause big problems later. In the 1970s, oil prices went up very high. Venezuela became even richer. The government spent money on everything. They gave subsidies and benefits to people. They invested in big projects. Life was comfortable for many Venezuelans. But the government was not saving money. They were not planning for difficult times. They were spending everything that came in. When you have lots of money, it is easy to forget that hard times might come. But hard times always come eventually. Then, in the 1980s, oil prices started to fall. Suddenly, Venezuela had less money. The government had debts to pay. They had promised many things to the people, but now they could not afford those promises. The economy began to struggle. Prices went up. The value of Venezuelan money went down. People started to feel worried. The good times were ending, and difficult times were beginning. This was a turning point. Venezuela's problems were just starting to show. In the 1990s, Venezuela faced a serious crisis. The economy was bad. Many people lost their jobs. Poverty increased. People were angry with the government. They felt betrayed. They had trusted their leaders, but their leaders had failed them. There were protests in the streets. There was violence. The political system was breaking down. Venezuela needed change. But what kind of change? In 1998, a new leader appeared. His name was Hugo Chavez. He was a former military officer. He promised to help the poor people. He promised to fight corruption. He promised to use Venezuela's oil wealth for everyone, not just the rich. Many people believed him. They were desperate for hope. They voted for him, and he became president. This was another major turning point in Venezuela's story. Chavez changed many things in Venezuela. He took control of the oil industry. He used oil money to create social programs. He gave food, health care, and education to poor people. Many Venezuelans loved him for this. They felt he cared about them. But Chavez also concentrated power in his own hands. He weakened democratic institutions. He controlled the media. He made enemies of those who disagreed with him. The country became divided. Some people saw him as a hero. Others saw him as a threat to democracy. When Chavez died in 2013, his vice president, Nicolás Maduro, took over. But Maduro did not have Chávez's popularity or skill. And by this time, Venezuela's problems had become very serious. Oil prices fell again. The economy collapsed. Shops ran out of food and medicine. Crime increased dramatically. Millions of people could not find work. The value of Venezuelan money became almost worthless. Inflation went out of control. People struggled to survive day by day. Many Venezuelans decided to leave their country. They left their homes, their families, and their memories behind. They walked across borders to Colombia, to Brazil, to Peru, to Ecuador. They were looking for safety, for food, for a chance to live a normal life. This migration became one of the largest in Latin American history. Millions of people left Venezuela. It was heartbreaking. Families were separated. The country lost doctors, teachers, engineers, and workers. Venezuela was bleeding its talent and its people. Today, Venezuela remains in crisis. The political situation is complicated. The economy is still very weak. Many people still struggle. But the Venezuelan people are strong and resilient. They have hope that things will get better. They remember the good times. They remember when their country was prosperous and peaceful. They believe that Venezuela can recover. History shows us that countries can fall and rise again. Nothing stays the same forever. Change is always possible. The story of Venezuela teaches us important lessons. It shows us that natural resources alone do not guarantee success. A country needs good governance, wise planning, and diversification. It shows us that democracy is fragile and must be protected. It shows us that corruption and poor decisions have real consequences for real people. But most importantly, it shows us the strength of human spirit. Even in the darkest times, people find hope. They find courage. They keep going. And so, my friends, this is the story of Venezuela. A story of beauty and tragedy. A story of wealth and poverty. A story of hope and struggle. From the indigenous people who first lived on this land to the Spanish colonization, to the fight for independence, to the discovery of oil, to the rise and fall of the economy. Venezuela has experienced so much. It is a country with a complex past and an uncertain future. But it is also a country of strong, proud, resilient people. When we listen to stories like this, we learn more than history. We learn about human nature. We learn that success requires wisdom, not just resources. We learn that freedom must be protected every day. We learn that hope survives even when times are hard. Venezuela's journey is not over. The story continues. What happens